Hello and welcome to the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. This is your host, Ashley from Ashley Taylor Wellness. On this podcast, we talk about all things beauty, health, wellness, and optimization. Being a high maintenance hippie represents not being boxed in, as I strongly believe that one size does not fit all. I'm a nurse turned coach, and I have learned so much about both conventional and alternative options, and I want to help you expand your options. I'm here to inspire you to learn new ways to improve your quality of life and to take your power back. I'm so excited that you're here, so let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. I am very excited for today's episode. As I'm sure you know, I am diehard for coffee enemas because they have changed my life so much and my quality of life. And it isn't just me, it's many others. So today, our guest is the founder of Happy Bum Co. Her name is Kyah Seary, and I am so excited to have you here. So thank you for being here, Kyah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us where you're from.
I am from Brisbane, Australia, so that is where I am based now. I actually grew up in Seattle, Washington, though, so United States born and Australia forevermore.
Well, you have the accent. How old were you when you moved to Australia?
I was 19.
Okay. And I haven't been, but I've heard that it's so beautiful. And yeah, it's really cool to hear that coffee enemas are worldwide.
They are. Yeah, we've just had a super hot Aussie Christmas, so by the pool with the barbecue on. So yeah, a different world back to where I grew up in the US. But yeah, it's absolutely. Coffee enemas are global now, and we definitely love that.
So tell us a little bit about you. What was your career? What was your life like before coffee enemas? And how did you find them?
So coffee enemas have played a huge role in my healing journey. And I actually started the Happy Bum Co. and got into enemas because of my own personal gut health struggles. So a bit of a quick backstory is I was about 13 years old and my bowel actually shut off. So I had severe abdominal pain. I was really sick. No one knew what it was. I got rushed to the emergency room one night because I was pretty much felt like what were in labor pains. And they took an x-ray. I think it was my appendix. And it turned out that my colon was absolutely full. And that was sort of when we realized what the problem was, that my bowel had shut off. I wasn't going. It had actually been months since I'd been to the toilet.
Wow.
And I started searching for answers. My parents were like, okay, we tried laxatives. We did all the Western med things and none of it worked. So I was in pain for many, many years. Constipation is so debilitating and it's not something people really talk about. So it was really embarrassing and it was really painful too. So we went years down the track, nothing was working. I was drinking colonoscopy prep and that wasn't even moving. I was so toxic. And from that, it's not just your bowel, it's your skin, my energy levels, my moods, you're kind of like, am I going to be like this forever? I was a teenager, my hormones. So eventually we got to the point where the gastroenterologist said when I was 16, we have nothing else to try. We're going to rip out 90% of your bowel and you'll have a colorectomy bag. And I was very lucky at that point that my parents are actually both doctors and they said, no, we need to find a different way. And that's when we found colonic. So I happened to live near a great colon hydrotherapy clinic in Seattle. And I started going for colonics. The relief was immediate, natural. My health just took a huge turn. But I couldn't go in for a colonic every day. They, can be quite expensive for regular use. And I really wasn't going in between to the toilet. So my colon hydrotherapist taught me how to do enemas at home to help support my bowel. And that was a game changer for me because I finally had some control over, when my bowel movements were coming. I had instant relief if I needed it. It was totally natural. I felt really well doing it. And yeah, I just sort of took that control back. And that was huge for me. It gave me a bit of freedom. And that is how I started doing colonics and enemas. And I really healed my gut. And then fast forward a ton of years later, I ended up moving to Australia, starting over. I did my business degree in Queensland, and I actually started working for a colon hydrotherapy clinic. And because I had been going in for so long, I'd been having them myself, it was just such an easy fit and I fell in love with it. Then I opened my own colon hydrotherapy clinic, and my clients, turns out, really needed enemas. And that is how the Happy Bum Co. was born, because I just couldn't find anything else that I was happy to stock. And I wanted something that was, really I could recommend to my clients and feel really confident using and recommending. And so I created my own.
Amazing. So it sounds like the colonics, which is water, is where you started, water enemas, and then coffee enemas. So how long after finding colonics and the water enemas did you learn about the coffee? How many years was that?
Yeah, so I probably did water enemas. So I started doing water enemas when I was about 16,
Mhm.
and I did them for a good 5, 6 years. No one ever told me about coffee enemas. The internet wasn't so savvy back then. There wasn't a lot of information. It wasn't even something I was really aware that people did. And then as I got a bit older, I was having a lot of hormonal problems, and I was having really bad period pain, my skin. I'd been diagnosed at an early age with PCOS and had all these different things going on in the background that I just couldn't really get a grasp on. And it wasn't really changing for me. And I had changed my diet. I was totally plant-based, had cut out all natural. I was using only natural products. I'd really detoxed my whole life. I'd done a lot of research there. But then I started to research coffee enemas. I already had my enema kit, but I wasn't doing coffee enemas. And that was a game changer for me, because I had always been told, I was pretty much told as a kid that I wouldn't have children. I was pretty much infertile because of my PCOS and my hormonal problems and my bowel. And I started doing coffee enemas. My period pain just disappeared. My skin cleared. My eyes were so much brighter.
Yeah.
And then I fell pregnant naturally with my son. So,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, that was the biggest surprise of all, but the most amazing thing. And I know in my gut that coffee enemas had a huge part to play in that.
They absolutely changed my life as well. I don't know how much you know about my story, but I was told to do coffee enemas in 2016, two a day for 2 years. I was very, very sick. There was this chemical exposure that I had, MTBE. They banned it
Mm.
in 2009 in California, but they didn't have any sort of cleanup. So it was still in the soil and the water. And I was working night shift as a nurse too. So I just thought that's all that it was. I later learned about MTHFR and that I might struggle with methylation. So combined with this really toxic overload, and I really needed to support my liver, I just felt like like I said, my memory was gone. My skin was covered in hives. I knew something was wrong. I was only 28 at the time. You were much younger, but still I dealt with constipation as a teen, and I just knew that something was off, but I didn't really stress about it or think that it was a big deal because, well, so many people deal with these things. And as I got into the hospital as a nurse, I realized, well, what is accepted as normal may not actually be healthy. It's just common. So
Absolutely.
constipation is a big one. But it sounds like for you, you were symptomatic, like you had pain. I would go like maybe once or twice every 2 weeks. I didn't really have pain or bloating that I noticed. But for you,
Yeah.
you did have that.
Well, it becomes normal, doesn't it? I can't imagine
Yes.
what I felt like then. Like I
Mhm.
actually picture myself now without my daily enema or my movement. I'm like, oh my God, how did I go weeks without going? But it you just don't realize, because it becomes your normal, even though exactly what you said, it's not healthy and it's really not okay. It shouldn't just be accepted. But that's really interesting what you said about mold, because I actually believe that that had a bit of a part in my story too, because I grew up in Seattle, and the house that my dad lived in was really dark. It was very, very wet, very moist. And I know that there was mold growing in that house. And as soon as I moved to Australia, where I was in bright climates, heat, the place I was living was brand new, no mold, my gut health took and my overall health took a huge turn. And I was doing coffee enemas at that stage as well. So I was actually detoxifying the mold.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I'm 100% there with you on the mold too.
Yeah, mold and chemicals, just so
Yeah.
many things that we are not looking for in the conventional setting. And
Mhm.
as a former hydrotherapist at this point,
No, I still own, I have got two clinics
amazing.
in Brisbane. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
one of the things that I was told was that if I do coffee enemas, especially 2 a day for 2 years, there's no way I'm going to be able to go on my own. That is not my experience. I don't know the science or the reason behind it. However, like I said, a few times a month I would go. And now I'm able to go on my own, even though I do enemas. So, what have you seen?
Oh, absolutely. That's a really big thing that we get asked is, if I do an enema, will it, my bowel get lazy? And it's
Mhm.
actually the total opposite because I like to think of it and I like to explain it like cars on a highway. If there's a traffic jam, you're not going to be moving very well. But what the enema does, is it'll remove a lot of that old waste, a lot of the stagnation in there, and it actually stimulates the bowel to move itself. There's nothing that's getting sucked out during an enema. Basically, you're putting something in, stimulates the bile flow, stimulates your peristalsis, and it allows your body to actually function better. So that is the experience that most people have. Now, I will say we do get a really common question is, I did an enema and now I'm constipated. I haven't gone for 3 or 4 days. And again, the answer to that is it's not the enema that made you constipated. It's actually a sign of your true transit time because the enema is removed more than you would go likely in a couple of days. And now you can see from the time you eat something to the time it comes out how slow it's really moving.
Very
So
interesting.
yeah. So, because if when you're eating something for the time it should come out, a healthy bowel should be, 12 to 48 hours max.
Mhm.
So, if you're doing an enema, you're not even clearing the entire colon. It's really the descending colon. So, if you're not having a bowel movement for 3 or 4 days after that, that's a sign of how slow things are really moving in there.
Yes. And bowel transit time is something that refers to when you eat something, how long it takes for it to come out the other end. So, a good way to assess that may be eating beets. That's one way people do it.
Or corn.
Yep, that too. That'll work. Um, so thank goodness you did not have to have that surgery. But there are so many times I've been in the hospital and I see people who have obstructions. And did you ever have to have an NG tube put in?
I didn't. I
Oh, that's
didn't. I
great.
did every test under the sun as to why my bowel had stopped, and they just couldn't figure anything out. But this was a long time ago, and diet was not assessed then. My diet was really poor growing up. I had, heavy chemical exposure, grew up in a very stressful household as well. So a lot of emotional stress. And from my 17 years of being a colon hydrotherapist. We treat thousands and thousands of people, and stress has such a huge impact on the gut and on the colon. It's almost like our control center, and we hold so much emotional stuff in there that was a huge part of my constipation as well. And really, where the enemas have also helped so much. So, coffee enemas do more than just detoxify the liver and, provide immediate relief from bloating and constipation. They also have a huge mental health and emotional health capacity because when you do a coffee enema and you're holding, it actually stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest, calms you down. And this is incredible for anyone who is living in fight or flight mode, has high cortisol, has anxiety. And I know for me, that is my number one form of stress relief.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just amazing how connected the gut and the brain are, and how we don't realize that supporting our gut and our liver with a coffee enema can have such a profound effect on your mental health.
definitely. So most people, they think of coffee and they think of, what the caffeine spike, the anxiety. And when I drink coffee by mouth, I definitely feel that. So I did not initially start coffee enemas thinking it would have any impact on the nervous system, the vagus nerve, anything like that. It was more so for liver support, moving the bile. And then I learned that it was really good for the parasympathetic system. And I have an Oura ring. And sometimes when I do a coffee enema, I will see that as restorative time. So why would a coffee enema do that for someone? How could it get them into that state?
That is an incredible question because it's one of those questions we get asked all the time. So when I'm the exact same, when I drink coffee, I actually don't consume any caffeine orally. When I grew up in Seattle, the Starbucks capital of the world.
Yeah.
And I think I used to have, this is actually quite embarrassing, but I used to have probably 3 or 4 grande lattes a day because it was so cold and we wanted something to warm our hands up. So when I was a teenager, I was drinking so much caffeine and it shot my adrenals. I used to get really jittery, headaches, withdrawal. So I cut out coffee when I was in my late teens because I realized I was like, this is not something that is benefiting me at all. So any caffeine I'm so sensitive to if I drink it. And so I don't. But a coffee enema is totally different because it actually bypasses the digestive system. So we're not digesting it. It's not going through the stomach. So you'll have a totally different effect. And most people find that it is really relaxing, can help with panic attacks, anxiety. And I know, I think some of the last few years were quite stressful for the entire world. And that would be my go-to right before bed. I'd get home and after a long day in clinic or with the kids, whatever it was, and I would have my coffee enema ready and I would do my coffee enema before bed and I would sleep like a baby.
Mm-hmm. I noticed the same. And
Hmm.
so I'm not sleeping well if I drink coffee past noon. And then I can do a coffee enema before bed and I sleep very well. So I think it's something that a lot of people don't realize. I mean, it really shocked me, but I have the same experience. What about emotions? Because my boyfriend, he has also joined me. He's been doing them for 6 years. And
Mhm.
he feels that it helps him feel calmer. And like he
Oh,
has some sort of emotional release, not necessarily crying, but like a peaceful feeling afterwards.
oh, absolutely. So my husband's been doing coffee enemas with me as well, once or twice a week for who knows how long, a long time. And absolutely, it's so calming, it's so peaceful. So in Chinese medicine, your colon is where we store grief, guilt, and anxiety. And your liver, which is what the coffee enemas really target, are anger and frustration. So often when we do a coffee enema, we do have that huge liver rush. You'll probably find that release is pretty hot and fiery, and you feel so calm and peaceful after. So sometimes we just need to let it all go.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you've heard regarding coffee enemas? We did speak about, will you not be able to go to the bathroom on your own? That has not been my experience. I go more on my own, but anything else that you've heard?
Well, it's actually pretty frustrating because when you go on Dr. Google, it comes
Mhm.
up with, I mean, these pretty ridiculous things, I would say. I think one of them is coffee enemas will make you'll lose every electrolyte that you have. You'll be so dehydrated. And, it's like no one is sitting at Starbucks going, oh, if you drink that coffee, you're going to be so dehydrated. So I think there's so much misconception on the bacteria balance in your gut, electrolytes, and, just perforations in general. So, an enema tip is so soft and silicone, and there is no way that you can perforate your bowel doing an enema. The flow of the coffee or water or whatever blend you're doing is a gravity fed. It is so low.
Mhm.
So it's not uncomfortable, it's not painful. Yes, you might get a little bit of cramping if you're really compacted or if you've got a lot of gas in there, or maybe you're super toxic and you've been eating fast food every day for the last 10 years, like there might be a little bit of cramping there, but it's
Mhm.
it's nothing that you can't handle. But yeah, people are often really concerned about the electrolyte balance, which yes, like absolutely, drink some coconut water after. We're actually just about to release an electrolyte blend to really help support people on that journey and also take away any of those concerns. But a little bit of pinch of rock salt in your water post enema is fantastic. But it's nothing that I would be concerned about, especially after doing one enema. And the same with the bacteria balance. So when you do a bowel movement, you release good and bad bacteria. It's not, and then when you do a coffee enema, you're just having a much bigger bowel movement. So you're going to be releasing good bacteria, yes, but a lot of bad bacteria will be coming as well. And if you're struggling with a lot of health issues, gut health issues, your diet is, a little bit hairy, you've been not feeling well, there's a really good chance that you have way more bad bacteria than you should. And that's the part that I would be focusing on, getting rid of the toxicity, the chemicals, the heavy metals, the bad bacteria, the yeast, the parasites, everything that's in there that shouldn't be. And then we can work on repopulating once there's a nice environment in there.
Yeah. I have never, in the 8,000 people that have taken my course, and I don't ever tell people this is medical advice. I just instruct how to do it if they've been given the green light. And I've never had one person ever report they've had a perforation, an infection. I've never heard. Have you ever gotten that feedback? And how many people do you think have purchased your kits over the years?
Oh my gosh. No, never. I mean, there's probably 20,000 enema kits that we've sold. But that is a kit. Most people are using that kit between daily to weekly to monthly. So per user, that's a lot of enemas. And actually myself. So I've been doing a daily enema and sometimes even twice if I need different support. So if I've maybe felt a bit stressed, I'll do a coffee enema and then a calm blend enema. And my body has never felt, unwell after. I've never felt uncomfortable. I know the one thing that people do sometimes say is it will stir up their hemorrhoids a little bit. Okay. And if you've got a lot of constipation and things are really hard that are coming out, that can happen. It's certainly not, a threatening condition. It can be a little uncomfortable, but absolutely no reports of anything that was sort of perforation or really serious. And they are also TGA and FDA approved. They're a very safe, simple tool to be using at home.
Amazing. So here's the other thing. I was speaking with my boyfriend about this last night. I didn't work in the emergency room, but I took care of patients after the fact, and people put a lot of things in their bodies. And there are some very aggressive sex toys out there. And for anyone who may not know what an enema tip looks like, if you're watching this on YouTube, or you can actually see, it is literally smaller than my pinky. It is tapered. It is silicone, like you said. I've used many enema kits over the years. I absolutely love yours. The quality is great. I love that it's silicone. And so we really don't want to be using plastic. But back in the day, I used one company that had a plastic tip. It was a little bit shorter and flat on the top. And I could get it in, it was small, but these tips are amazing because it's rounded on the top, tapered, and you really don't even feel it go in. So the only issue that I have seen is that someone stuck it in too far past the connector. So don't do that. And then
that will just stop your flow. If your enema is not flowing, that's why.
Yeah. So you want to make sure not to put it in past the connector. But really, there are things that people put in that place that are much bigger, and yet sex toys, go ahead. And those cause issues where I've seen hospitalizations and people have to come to the ER, but I've never seen an enema crisis. Doesn't mean it hasn't happened, but it's just interesting that there's a lot of fear around one, like you said, and not Starbucks, not very aggressive sex toys, but I mean, to each their own.
I love that you've said that because I have wanted to say that to so many people. And I just was like, oh, I don't think I can send this in an email,
Yeah.
But
I'll say it.
100% agree. I love that you've just said that because I think it in my head a lot. Yeah. I mean, 100%.
Do the math. I don't particularly care for a water enema.
Mm.
I find that I just feel better after a coffee enema. Have you noticed a difference between the two? Is it just that you get extra benefits with the coffee enemas, or do you find there are some cons with the water enemas? And I ask this because I've been told it could potentially affect your microbiome with water enemas, but not so much with coffee enemas. Have you ever heard that?
So I love coffee enemas. I think there are so many added benefits, and you feel better after a coffee enema because of the glutathione boost, because of the liver detox, because of the parasympathetic, activation, the release, and the added bile flow. So
Mhm.
the release after a coffee enema comes from a whole new level, and every day of the week I'd choose a coffee enema. However, for people who are just starting out, or if say I still do regular colonics because my bowel still doesn't really move across and I need a deeper colon cleanse. A coffee enema, you usually use about 800 mils, I think 2 quarts maybe where you are, or 2 cups of water
I
maybe.
use about
Um,
3 cups, but yeah.
yeah, but so that it's a smaller amount because you want to hold it for the
Mhm.
10 to 15 minutes. But for some people with a lot of compaction, you want the water or the solution to go a bit higher because the farther back you go, the more you're going to soften in the colon. So what we generally recommend is that people who are suffering from a lot of constipation or they've never done an enema before and their colon's quite full, do a water enema first,
Mhm.
clear the pathway, and then you're going to have a much easier time at holding. So if your colon is super compacted and you put any kind of solution in there, especially if there's stuff sitting right at the bottom, you're going to really struggle to hold for that 10 to 15 minutes to get all those benefits of the liver. So we definitely use water enemas as a tool. If I'm ever feeling just like really constipated or something, I'll probably do a water enema first. But
Mhm.
absolutely, after a coffee enema, you do feel very different, I find.
Yeah. I was also taught that because I was dealing with so much constipation, do a water enema first. And in my course, I teach to do it after a bowel movement, especially if you're struggling to hold it. So, what
Mhm.
tips do you have for someone who does struggle to hold it? And why might they struggle to hold it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question too. So the main reasons you'll struggle to hold a coffee enema, the basics, make sure make sure the coffee is the right temperature. So
Mhm.
really cold coffee, your body is going to want nothing to do with. That's going to come out quicker than it went in. Same with too hot. So just making sure that's about body temperature. So about 37, 38 degrees C. Making sure it's the right temperature is the first one. And then making sure that the flow is nice and slow. So the higher you hang your bag or your bucket, your enema, the faster it's going to come in. Now, that's not in a damaging way at all. It's not dangerous to have the flow come in, but if you're not used to that feeling, it can be
Mhm.
very stimulating. So if you hang your bag quite high, you might find that enema coming in is very stimulating, and you might find you need to go to the toilet quicker. So I recommend playing with the little hose, stopping, starting, rubbing your belly, distract, put some music on, do some breath work so that your body is nice and relaxed. So having a nice, slow, gentle flow, there's no benefit to having it come in super fast and getting it over with really quick. Take your time, make sure it's comfortable, make sure you're comfortable, get a pillow. I like to have my towel down. But then there's the other reasons. If you're ticking all those boxes and you're still having trouble holding, it usually comes down to inflammation and toxicity in the body and stress. So if you're really anxious about the whole process and your body is so tight, your cortisol levels are really high, you're stressed out, and your body is pretty much just not going to be able to hold it. Same if you've been, having, health issues for a long time, if you're super loaded with heavy metals, parasites, candida, if you're, live a quite toxic lifestyle, you drink a lot of alcohol, if you've had a lot of sugar or, maybe a week that you haven't been eating very well, you might find it's harder to hold your coffee enema. And that's okay. It's
Mhm.
a work in progress. You're not, you haven't failed if you haven't held it the whole time. You're still getting benefits, and it's practice makes perfect. And it's just about showing up for yourself and for your liver and taking every day as it comes as a step. So that's usually what I recommend to people is just, if you can't hold it the full time, you have somewhere to grow to.
Yeah. And I tell people don't force your body to hold it. If it says 6 minutes time to evacuate, then listen to your body because, just to compound onto what you shared, I agree with the temperature. If it's too cold, I feel contracted. If it's too hot, that's uncomfortable. So I always recommend sticking your pinky in for 10 seconds. And if it feels good there, then it'll feel okay on the inside. I prefer it a little warmer, but never cold. So absolutely agree with that. Having a bowel movement first or a water enema. And I agree if the toxic load is higher, for example, if I'm doing a parasite cleanse and I know that I'm detoxing a lot, I will do more coffee enemas that day just to make sure I'm moving everything through. And then what else? Binders. Some people, if they take binders by mouth, maybe 20 or 30 minutes before, that can be in the gut. So if you are dumping a lot of bile or toxins, that can help. But the goal isn't, to hold it forever. And have you heard that if you hold it too long, that it could cause you to recirculate toxins? Or is there a length where you think it's too long to hold it?
In my personal experience, I find if I hold it for too long, my body starts to absorb the coffee and I get much less of a release. So,
Okay.
yeah, I guess that does mean you're not eliminating as many toxins. So you've kind of done the work and then not finished it. So I definitely think 15 minutes is more than enough. Sometimes
Mhm.
I get busy, I'm making content, I'm checking emails, I'm talking to my kids, whatever it is, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's been too long. And I get on the toilet. It doesn't make me feel bad or it's not dangerous, but I definitely notice when I go a little bit over time. And people
Yeah.
do ask that a lot too.
I try to do 12 to 15 minutes. Is 15 is your sweet spot?
12 to 15. And it just
Okay.
depends. I'm a huge believer in listening to your body. And
Yes.
when the urge comes, sometimes you just gotta go, and that's okay too. And if you can't hold it the full time, so I know my husband does this, so he just has a totally different gut to mine, and it'll
Mhm.
depend on, we all have different inflammation sources and, stress or what you've been eating or drinking. And sometimes if he can't hold a coffee enema for the full time, he will make two and he'll do them back to back. And
Yes.
that's fine too. And he feels comfortable with that and he's not doesn't put so much pressure on himself to hold it the whole time. So he'll do one for 5 or 6 minutes, get on the toilet, and then he'll just come back and finish it. And then
Mhm.
he might do a soothing turmeric bulb after or something. So it's not a one size fits all and do what feels good for you.
Yes, I fully agree with that. And I have some friends who choose to do it that way. What is an amount that you would say is too much for a coffee enema? Because for a colonic, I mean, how much can a person take for something like that? Liters?
Oh, yeah, a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, a good few liters. Do you
Okay.
mean water amount in an enema or?
Just water amount in a colonic. So how much could we actually hold? So people are like, I don't know, 3 cups. That sounds like I'm gonna burst. But I'm like, well, a colonic, you're holding a lot more than 3 cups, right?
Yeah. Well, your bowel is, almost 2 meters long. It is huge. And yeah, you could hold probably 4 liters in your
Okay.
colon
That would
from,
be really difficult to retain. But for a coffee
yes.
enema, I do not feel that 3 cups is this crazy amount. It sounds like a lot. And as always, listen to your body. But if I find that a coffee enema is much more comfortable than a colonic, and I think there's a time and a place for colonics, but for a
Yeah.
lot of people are scared to do coffee enemas, but they'd rather do a colonic. I'm like, if you can handle a colonic, personally, I think a coffee enema is a lot easier.
Yeah, coffee enemas are really easy. And the benefit is you can do it at home yourself. You can create your own little safe space and you have access to it as a toolkit whenever you need it. So definitely if you've had colonics, enemas are such a natural sort of follow on from that. But they just have different benefits and different reasons, and different people are gonna have different needs for different things. So that's sort of why, we don't give medical advice either. And we really encourage people. It's like, okay, well, what is your main health issue? What are you struggling with? What are you really looking to support in your body? What are you looking to achieve? And we can help make recommendations based on that. Because we have people that have every different type of condition. And you look at you and me, you've come to coffee enemas for such a different reason than I have. And it's, our needs might be different at different times too. And when you begin, you might want to be doing them really regularly, once a day. Some people with Gerson therapy are doing them 4 times a day. But if you're just having some IBS and bloating, that's probably not going to be appropriate for you.
Yes. So I don't tell people how often to do them. I just teach how. But you do them daily yourself as well?
Yeah, well, if I don't do an enema or a colonic, my bowel really doesn't move. So, and I eat all the things, I take all the things, I've done all the things. For me, it's very emotional and stress based. And I've learned that over so much different healing over the years. And I have actually got my bowel to restart. Like it actually is, my peristalsis is awesome.
Mhm.
It's just a gut brain thing and a fight or flight thing. And I'm really happy doing my enemas. So if I don't have a bowel movement, I do an enema. And yeah, but I replenish good bacteria. I eat all the right things and I drink tons of water, my electrolytes. So we're making sure that all the other boxes are also ticked.
Yeah. So what were the biggest changes for you? Because you were told you weren't going to be pregnant, and then you said you have 2 children.
I have 3.
You have 3 children. So that's pretty amazing. I mean, how many people are dealing, and I'm not saying that's the only thing, but it seems to help a lot of people. And you mentioned PCOS. Do you know if you
Mhm.
still deal with PCOS? Are you comfortable sharing that?
Oh, no. Oh,
Okay.
everything it was incredible. I was diagnosed with so many different things as a teenager. We ran every test and did every blood and every invasive scan and test. And it was it was so doom and gloom there, but my diet was horrible. I was totally overloaded with chemical toxicity from so many different sources, mold and emotional health. And, I was on over-the-counter birth control, taking lots of different over-the-counters. I was on tons of antibiotics as a kid. I mean, there was every piece of the puzzle that can give you a lot of different symptoms there. So when I started doing coffee enemas, I just thought, I had been told when I was a teenager that, I would have to be on hormonal replacement therapy and it probably wouldn't happen and it probably, wasn't, and that was really hard to be told as a teenager as well. I'd always wanted to be a mom. And I couldn't believe it. But I started to realize that my hormones were shifting because of the period pain
Hmm.
and the breast tenderness. And then I have to tell you, I've had 3 of the most beautiful pregnancies, and I attribute that so much. And again, I work with so many women that and a lot of my very natural coffee enema mums, my crunchy mums have all had very similar very beautiful pregnancies, not a lot of morning sickness. And I attribute a lot of that to the detoxification before I fell pregnant. And then the road back to health postpartum with my hormones and mental health and sleep, I just found it to be a great experience because my body was so supported through the whole process. And I wasn't trying to process so many toxins during that time. So I think prepping for pregnancy and doing coffee enemas for your hormones is an incredible fertility support. And it's just going to make you feel so much better throughout the whole thing. So
Amazing. Yeah.
highly recommend. And I actually did back to the coffee enemas versus water enemas.
Hmm.
Coffee enemas aren't really recommended for pregnancy because they're such a strong detox. But I did water enemas because my bowel still wasn't moving, and there are so many other people who are the exact same. They reach out all the time. And, when you're pregnant, you can't do coffee enemas. So I actually did water enemas throughout my entire pregnancy every day for all 3 of them. My midwives were totally on board. It was super safe. I did them in labor. I actually to clear the path to make sure there was nothing sitting
Hmm.
there, and can't recommend it more.
Thank you for sharing that because a lot of people ask me, and I will always tell them to ask their doctor, but the contraindications, or we're not sure, well, maybe word it like that, would be pregnancy, breastfeeding. And I mean, if you have ulcerative colitis or something like that, that's really severe, I wouldn't think that would be a good idea. But have you seen people do even colonics with something like that, or it's just not a good idea because it's so open?
So, ulcerative colitis, we would definitely recommend the soothing turmeric blend. So there's actually some PubMed studies produced on turmeric enemas for Crohn's and colitis. And it's essentially like, how you drink a nice warm ginger turmeric tea for your throat when it's sore. When you have those inflammatory gut conditions, it's raw in there. It's so sore. So we actually have a turmeric blend enema that is much more suited to people with those kinds of conditions to help lower the inflammation, soothe the gut, and people get a lot of relief from that.
Okay, great.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's for those. And then pregnancy is water enemas. So fertility and conception, coffee enemas, absolutely. We also have a hormone blend as well. So a lot of people don't realize, but detoxification and your liver health is so important for pregnancy because, again, we're just overloaded in today's world with these hormone blocking chemicals. So if you can do coffee enemas to remove those, you're going to open up your channels for better communication, for your hormones to function better. And this is really important for men too. And then we have our women's hormone blend. So we recommend doing the coffee enemas and then like a hormone bulb or drinking it as a tea after to really support and nourish those hormonal pathways in such a deep way because you're absorbing it again straight into your bloodstream. So for fertility and conception, incredible. Like we get love letters from women who've been trying, for so many years and they've just gone, oh, stuff it. I'll just give this a try. And they order the hormone balance kit and we get like, oh my God, I'm pregnant, blah, blah, and it's just amazing. During pregnancy, you can support your bowels. So a lot of women get so compacted and it is so uncomfortable. It can make you so miserable. The gas, the bloating, it's just my first pregnancy, I'll never forget. I was like putting my car keys in the fridge and like taking the tomatoes and putting them in the car and like all the things. My brain was just totally checked out. But when I would have a colonic or I'd do my enema, it would improve. And then I would sort of do my colonic once a week. I'd do my enemas every day. And towards the end of the week, I would be pretty like pregnancy brain and I would do the colonic. And I was like, oh, okay, where are my keys now? Like, why would I put them in the fridge? So during pregnancy, water enemas are great. You can do the mag, which helps to soften everything, but it just makes your journey so much more comfortable. So much of pregnancy is just discomfort. I also use the Soothe blend a bit. You get a lot of back pain during pregnancy too. So you can do that, a turmeric enema during pregnancy. And then postpartum, as soon as baby's around 5 weeks old, you can start back with coffee enemas. I recommend doing them away from feeds, but it's totally fine. And honestly, your hormones take such a bashing during postpartum. You're not sleeping. There's so many different things happening there, supporting your body and your liver. Because a lot of women, it's hard to eat well. You're not getting enough sleep. If you can do one thing for your body that gives you a little bit of energy, makes you feel alive, make sure your bowels are moving. My coffee enemas were my savior.
Yeah, I mean, that's been true for me. So coffee enemas are amazing, but we have a lot of other options. And you briefly touched on that. But my last question about coffee would be, why would you recommend your coffee? What do you ensure in the quality? What are you looking for when it's being tested? How do people know that they're getting a great quality coffee that's going to help them detoxify versus something like one of your mainstream coffee shops that is definitely not organic or clean or anything like that? Why would this coffee be different?
Yeah, so it is really important that you are using the correct coffee because most people don't realize, but I think it's about 53% of coffee actually contains mold. And when we're doing the coffee enemas, it's such a specific purpose. We're not just drinking it for fun. It's not about the taste. It's really about the palmitic acid. It's really about the caffeine content, and it's really about the quality and making sure that it's tox free. So all of the happy bum beans, so that's our organic coffee, we do testing on every batch for mycotoxins, for mold. We've tested all the palmitic acid to make sure it's correct. They're actually really low pH too. So that's a really good thing because you don't want your gut to be, having too much acidity, and it's really gentle for regular use. So all of our coffee is designed specifically for coffee enemas. It's all organic. It comes down to more, people often ask, green coffee, this, this type of coffee, this type of roast. And from all the testing that we've actually done ourselves, and that's, been a huge focus for us this year, is really being able to show people, why this is the right coffee for you to use. It's one thing to just say, oh, yes, this is good, but this is the why. We really want the science behind that. And I think a lot of people really crave that as well, to feel really confident in what they're buying and what they're choosing to put in their body. I know I'm a huge researcher, so before I do anything, I've researched every single thing about it. And I so feel for people that want the answers and the science behind that. So all of our coffee, it's where it's sourced is the most important thing for the palmitic acid. And same with the caffeine, it's the type of bean that you actually get. And then it's obviously roasted. We do medium roast, and then it's ground down. And from all of our testing, we've actually found in a plunger versus on the stove, it's very, very similar. So it's, we recommend the plunger because our whole brand sort of stands behind it's easy to do. We want to make it part of your lifestyle. It's not a one-off. You don't do one coffee enema and your liver is fixed. It needs to be something that's easy enough for the mom who has 3 kids, the person that works, long hours, juggling different things, travels a lot. It just has to be easy, that it fits into your life. So that's why we recommend the plungers. We don't want it to fit into that too hard basket. We don't want people to think, oh, I have to do all this prep and I don't have the right stuff. Our bundles just come like, this is what you need. Just do it. But yeah, it's really important to buy the right coffee. We don't ever recommend buying something off the shelf that you don't know or isn't specific for enemas, because you don't know, especially with bigger brands, how long that coffee has been sitting there. So coffee is one of those, it's an easy to mold product. And if it's been sitting on the shelf for a year or stored somewhere that's, in a humid climate, you just don't know what's going on in there. All of our coffee is small batch roasted. And we go through so much coffee that your coffee has pretty much been roasted maybe at most a month ago, because we are always trying to just keep up with the amount of coffee that people order.
Amazing. I'm really excited because I haven't tried it because I didn't really know much about the coffee. You mentioned the plunger. So a plunger is like a French press for anybody listening who's not sure what that is. And that comes in the kits from Happy Bum Co. I have always made mine on the stove. And so what you're saying is it's not wrong to do one or the other. It just might be more convenient for some people to use the plunger, aka the press. So if someone were to put in coffee, I do 3 tablespoons with 3 cups of water. Is that the ratio that you recommend for the plunger, or what do you suggest there?
So we do 2 tablespoons, and then the plungers are 1,000 mils. So you pretty much just fill the plunger up.
Okay. So
you don't have to take that full amount. Like if you're new to enemas and you can't hold that full amount, that's fine. Take as much as you can, but it's about that ratio.
Okay. So maybe not as concentrated as how I'm doing it. And how long would you need to steep it before pressing the plunger down to use it for the enema?
So you'd want to steep it for around 10 minutes,
Okay.
and then you're going to have to let it cool. So it's going to be in there for a lot longer unless you cool it down with some cool purified water. But ideal situation, you're popping your coffee grinds in, putting your boiling water over, and then you're letting it steep for a good hour or so before it starts to cool down.
Okay. So
you could prep it in advance, or you can add some colder water to cool it down.
Okay.
But
boiling water?
So if you've done 2 tablespoons of coffee into the plunger, pour your boiling water over top. Yeah, let it steep. Then, for some people, I know a lot of our really regular enema users will have their purified water that they then add into that so that they can, do it quite quickly after it's sort of steeped. But you could also leave it for a couple hours. Sometimes I do the school drop off and then come back and do my coffee enema. It's ready. Or you can make it the night before, whatever works for your lifestyle. But you just need it to end up at that body temperature or sticking your pinky in, like you said.
Yes, I also do the method where I make it boiling and then I add in the water. And you said purified water. So what does that mean to you? What type of water do you think is best for a coffee enema, and what should people avoid?
Well, I'm a water snob, but as pure as you can possibly get it. So we have, RO filters at home, and that's what we use. But, if you've got Kangen water, or if you have just the best possible filter that you can.
Okay. I
Yeah.
use distilled, and I
Yeah.
was taught not to use minerals in there because then we might absorb it if we're dehydrated. We're more likely to. But some people actually add minerals into their coffee enema. Have you heard anything either way about that?
I think that's one of those things we won't really know about. I'd say personal preference though. Maybe try
Mhm.
one with, one without. It would probably be a very tiny difference, I would imagine. But I would be doing minerals afterwards, because you're
Okay.
going to be pooping it all out anyways, right? So I would be doing that electrolytes and, taking those minerals post enema. That's me.
Yes, same. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's the plunger. You have the silicone enema bag. And for a lot of people who are new, I taught my course with the silicone bag and the stainless steel enema bucket. And right now there's not an enema bucket, but are you working on one?
Yes. So
Okay.
we are definitely working on an enema bucket. The silicone bags are so convenient. They don't break. You can use them forever. They're so travel friendly and they're very small bathroom friendly. So when I actually started the Happy Bum Co. and when I started doing enemas, I was like 16 and I had this tiny little bathroom and no money and nothing. So I just had my little enema bag and I would put it in my little waterproof case and off I'd go. So I've always loved the silicone, but I do totally appreciate that when you're at home or even for some of the other enema blends, a bucket can be nice. And certainly, coffee enemas we're starting to stock them in different wellness clinics, spa clinics, detox retreats, colon hydrotherapy clinics. And they definitely need the buckets as well to perform enemas at those types of venues. So we are actually going to release some pretty bougie glass enema buckets this year,
Nice.
but as non-breakable as we can possibly make them. And we have, yeah, because that's always a concern with glass, but yeah, it's you'll be able to see through them, which is really nice. They'll have the measurements on them. And yeah, we're really excited about it because we do have people ask for them. I've never been a huge fan of stainless steel because you can't see, if
Okay.
you're laying on the ground, you can't sort of see how far you have to go. I'm very visual. I like to know, okay, I've come this far. This is how far I have to go, and then start my timer. But it's totally personal preference. It's a
Mhm.
gravity fed enema at the end of the day, and to each their own. But yeah, that's my preference has always been silicone, but I'm super excited about the glass, and we're gonna have a lot of fun releasing those this year.
Well, I'll give it a go. And I tried a glass enema bucket before, but it had nothing on the outside. So I did shatter it. I wonder if there was some type of silicone or just something around it, but we'll see what you all come out with. And I can't wait to
Yes.
try it out. But for someone who's new, most people say that the bag is easier for them because in the bucket, at least the one that I have, it is, if you can see, if you're watching this, it's shaped like a cylinder and it has a little spout on the side, but people have to tilt the bucket to get the rest out. Some people have dropped the bucket. It can be an issue. So I love what you said about being able to see through it with the glass, but trying to make it not breakable. But the pro, I think, for the silicone enema bags is it's so easy to empty them because they empty right from the center in the bottom versus on the
So
side.
And you can hang it anywhere
Yeah.
because it's thin. So you can hang it over the shower. You can hang it on a hook. You can hang it over the door. You can hang it like I just got back from a month in our caravan and I had my enema bag. Me and my husband were both doing coffee enemas in our caravan. And it was just you could hang it on the shelf, over the wherever like we needed to do it, we could just do it because it was so easy. So yeah, there's that benefit too, is whatever bathroom that you're in you can make a silicone enema bag work.
Yeah, I love those. They're great for traveling. And one time I didn't bring it with me when traveling because I was like, oh, I don't need it because I really don't need the coffee enema. However, when I am traveling, when I'm on an airplane, I am more stressed. It really affects my body. And that is a time where I really want to make sure I have it with me and I'm not packing a bucket. So I'm glad that we have options here.
Yeah. And we have waterproof bag too,
Mhm.
because you need a good place to store it. And, like again, it has to be mess free. It has to be easy. Otherwise we won't do it.
Yeah.
So we really try to make it easy and fun to travel with. And we absolutely love, one of my favorite things is when people like tag us on Instagram and they're like, I'm like in Europe on my party cruise and I've got my enema kit, like that makes me happy.
Me too. I mean, it's such an amazing tool and it makes me sad as a nurse that if you ask about it, you're just scoffed at. And meanwhile, I'm over here having done thousands. I'm not saying other people should do that many, but it really changed my life, my skin, my mood, my energy levels. And it's just something that I didn't realize how good I could feel until I started to do that. Why would a sluggish liver affect someone's energy levels, mood? What is that doing if we're not supporting our liver and emptying our bowels?
Yeah, well, essentially, you're just becoming overburdened. So your liver is like your filtration system. And like anything else, once you're carrying your full load, if we just keep piling more and more on, which unfortunately is totally unavoidable these days, and I wish it wasn't the case, but every aspect of our lives, there's just pollution that we can be absorbing toxicity from. And if we're not emptying our bowels a couple times a day, if we are not actively supporting the liver, if we're stressed, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen more stress in the population than there is today. We're always on, we're always, just sort of switched into that engaged fight or flight mode. There's always, we're attached to our phones, there's constant noise around us. And our bodies take a hit from that and the adrenal fatigue. So when you start to do the coffee enemas, there's so many different benefits and they all just flow on. So obviously, first and foremost, you're getting a bowel movement, you're releasing toxicity manually in the toilet, but then you're also activating that parasympathetic nervous system. We actually get so many people that write in about this, and I totally agree. You are actually actively in your day taking 12 to 15 minutes to lie on the floor, which is so grounding. You are making this really deep connection to self, to ground, and just stopping in your day-to-day life can be really powerful. So that activated nervous system, and then your liver, that glutathione boost, the antioxidants, the liver bile flow production to then carry more toxicity from the liver and down and out. I mean, it's just such a game changer. So yeah, we can't possibly process everything. And if you're experiencing those symptoms are a sign that your body's not coping. So it's time to do something.
Yeah. And one thing I would add would be estrogen dominance. If we have a stagnant liver, that's going to affect all of our other hormones because they're all connected. So that's something to really think about as well. And it's helped a lot of women there. No, I didn't have that issue, but others I've seen.
Oh, well, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, that's sort of where the PMS symptoms are often a sign of that estrogen dominance, the sore breasts and the painful periods, and so many women during, menopause and perimenopause as well. So yeah, coffee enemas are huge for that too.
Okay, great. And I want to know about the bulb because I have it, I haven't tried it, and I want to know a little bit more about the blend. So you briefly mentioned the hormone blend. Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. So we
women's
have,
hormones?
yeah, women's hormone blend. Hormone blend is fine.
Hormone blend. And then is Calm Soothe the same one? Or are they two different formulas?
So there are two different. So we have 4 specific bulb blends,
Okay.
5 including the grains. So we have Soothe, which is the anti-inflammatory turmeric blend. So that one is turmeric, ginger, chamomile, and true cinnamon. So all really soothing and anti-inflammatory for the gut. Anyone with inflammation, amazing product. We have Calm, so that's your stress relief. So that's your reishi mushrooms, your passion flower, tulsi, valerian. So sleep and stress relief, that's a huge one. Then we have Biotic, so the probiotic. So post enema, we do a big release, a big movement. Anytime we're, doing a big detox, it is going to eliminate good gut flora. So again, when we're creating that healthier environment, so amazing to do a probiotic bulb after to basically infuse the right bacteria right where they need to go. It's a specific blend designed for repopulating your colon. So right where it needs to go. And then we have, yeah, calm hormone soothe biotic. And then you also can take the greens blend either way. So all of the bulb blends can be used either so if someone's not ready to try enemas or if they find it too much to do, say one every single day, they can also drink the bulb blends, but we highly recommend doing them in the bulb after an enema.
Okay. How
You can do the
big?
greens both ways.
The greens come in a bag and the others come in a cylinder. Soothe, I don't know if I have that one. Does that also come in the cylinder?
So all of those blends have now moved into cylinders.
Okay, great. And then greens as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So the greens, that is so cool to me that you can use it in an enema. So for the bulb, how much liquid does that contain?
So we recommend using only sort of 100 to 200 mils because the aim of the bulb, so different to the enema. So the enema is you take, the coffee in, you hold, and then you have this big release on the toilet, right? So you've got a nice sort of clean colon. You're feeling nice and deep bloated. We've gotten a lot of toxicity out. The bulb is part two. So that's the nourish and replenishment. So if we're doing, say, a probiotic bulb, or if you'd like some, support with your inflammation or hormones, you just make the bulb blend, you just make a tiny amount. So I just do that in the plunger as well. You sort of brew it like a tea, and then you just strain it, same as the coffee, and then you pour it into your little bulb, and it's just like a little mini handheld enema. So you don't have to hold it, you don't have to do anything. It's the same tip. So the tips are interchangeable, but they do come with their own. So it's easy to insert, and then I just lie on my side and I just hold it up, and it will just be a little gravity flow. I kind of like to think of it as like a little, say like a wheatgrass shot or a little probiotic shot, but up the other way.
Yeah.
Because it gets absorbed just like the coffee straight through the portal veins and into the bloodstream or into the colon, right where it needs to go.
So for the bulb, I don't know if this is kind of a gross question, but I would imagine there's some suction. So you want to squeeze and not deflate it before you pull it out, right? You would probably squeeze and then pull it out so it doesn't suck anything back.
Yeah, but you don't even really need to squeeze. Most of the time, as long as you hold it up, you might, like if there's a little bit of gas at the end, you might need to give it a little squeeze. But for the most time, it should just flow, especially because we always recommend people do the enema first, if possible, because then it's just clear and you're going to be able to hold it really easily. Because the goal is to just sort of lay down for a couple minutes, and then it should just absorb into your system, and you should be able to go about your day. So you don't need to sit on the toilet after a bulb. But yeah, you don't want to like pump it heaps of times, but just letting it flow. If it's not flowing very well for gravity, give it a tiny squeeze and it will go.
Okay. Is there a way to clean the inside of the bulb?
Yeah. So the whole thing comes apart. You can just wash it out. You could even put it in your dishwasher, but I just literally open it up. You can take the tips off, the little hose. It's like a little mini enema hose, but the bulb just unscrews, opens up, you can clean it right out and then let it dry, and then it's ready to go again.
Oh, I'm so excited. I have it ready to go. I just haven't tried it yet. And what really stands out to me would be calm. Valerian, I do really well with that by mouth. And for whatever reason, I'm a big fan of suppositories. I love my coffee enemas. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I prefer to take things that way many times.
I do too. I hear you, girl.
So I'm going to give that one a go. And then diatomaceous earth is something I've also received from you all. So that is not to be used in an enema, but what does that do?
So diatomaceous earth is a binder. So that one can help with parasite removal, candida removal, but it really just acts as like kind of like a gentle gut scrub. And it sort of just goes really gently like an exfoliant along the lining of your intestines all the way down the tract. So really amazing to help eliminate bloating, gas, help eliminate the parasites that are in there, and just sort of mops up the mess. So really great to take alongside. People often ask us about binders, and it's just minerals. It's just organic food, or it's not organic, but it's just food grade. There is no organic diatomaceous earth. It's just food grade fossil shell, basically. And it has so many different benefits too. It is rich in, zinc and silica, and there's some iron in it. It's so good for your hair, skin, teeth, nails. So it's a total win for so many different things. And you really notice the difference. So I always took that as parasite support through all my pregnancies as well, because you obviously can't do parasite cleansing. Yeah, it whitens your teeth. It just leaves, if you ever get that film in your mouth as well, it will really help eliminate that. So that's usually yeast.
By swishing it back and forth, or just by drinking it?
Just by drinking it. Sometimes I'll
Okay.
give it a little swish. If you're sort of ever feeling, that like fuzzy tooth sort of feeling, that fuzzy mouth sort of feeling, if anyone ever experiences that, swish a little bit of that and then you just swallow it down. Do that consistently for a good couple weeks and it's an absolute game changer.
Awesome. You said the two-step approach, meaning the enema and the bulb. I mean, I'm ready to up level my enema game. I'm already diehard for the coffee, but I do think it's important to replenish. A lot of the replenishing I do is by mouth, but now we have more options. I love the suppositories from another company, so I'm really excited to try this out. A question I get asked a lot is, well, where do you ship to? Where can people access the products? And is it something that people get directly from the website? Do you sell in other places, or is that the best way to get it? And what countries can people get it in?
Sure. So we have a warehouse in Australia. That's where I'm based. But we also have a warehouse in the United States. So we ship all, US, Canada. So we do Australia, New Zealand, and we are just in the new year. We'll be opening in the next couple of weeks our UK, Europe warehouse. So we have had so many people from all over the world just desperate to get their hands on our products, and we hear you. And you can always reach out to us too, though, and we will try to make anything work. Like we so get it. You need help, and we will do our absolute best to get the products where you need them to go. But super easy. You can order them online for US, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, anywhere close by that we can get to should be on there. You can also, we do have a list of stockists, so we do wholesale the products. That's, something we're really trying to roll out this year. Part of the Happy Bum Co brand is really making these products accessible, because when I was, like you were saying, as a nurse, you see people that would really benefit, and you can't just go to the chemist or the pharmacy and pick something like this up. Our goal is to really change that, because it should be an option, a natural option that people have access to. You need choices, you need options, and we feel like this is a great one for so many people. So it will hopefully be in more places around you, but we do have a ton of stockists in Australia, a lot of colon hydrotherapy clinics, a lot of natural health stores, and the US is growing in that space too. But for all the complete bundles, because often people are looking for very specific products and they want them all to come together, at this stage, it is probably easier to order online.
Okay, great. And I will include a link in the show notes. I also have a discount code. Do you know how much that saves for people?
That's 10%.
Amazing. Great. Coffee enemas have changed my life. It sounds like they've changed your life, and I'm so excited to dive into the other options. Is there anything that you want to share just about your experience, about the company, that you think would be valuable for people to hear in signing off before we go?
Sure. I think usually what I like to leave people with is that, I know you might be nervous, and, it can be a really vulnerable feeling and you're just not sure, but I personally could not recommend them anymore. And it sounds like you're the exact same. And there are so many thousands of other people that have been in your position before and taken that leap. And, the reviews on our website are just, everything is real. Like, we are transparent inside and out. If you have a question, we've heard it before and we're happy to answer. We've got a private Facebook group. You can jump in there once you've ordered your kit. It's all only people who have ever ordered from us. So everyone's in the same position. People are so supportive. We've got this incredible community now, and everyone is just here to help you and here to empower you and share their tips. And, we have a good laugh in there when you forget to unclamp the bag and the coffee goes everywhere. Like, we've done it, we've been there, and it's no big deal. So if you're worried about it, if you're nervous, just do it. It will change your life, but we are here 100% along the way. You'll get a personal response from me or my team. Yeah, we're an open book. We'll tell you whatever you want to know.
I've certainly gotten that from you. Every time I've reached out, everyone's been so responsive. I didn't know if it was just me, but it sounds like that's very important to you. It sounds like you want people to understand, feel heard, feel supported. Your passion is very clear, and you're such a vibrant person. And I think that's really helped me. Maybe that's what's helped you, but I love the work that you're doing. I love your products, and I can't wait to see what's in store for next year. Thank you for being here. I learned a lot. There's some new things that I'm going to try out, and I really appreciate your time and everything you shared today.
Well, thank you so much. That is so sweet. And I have always been a huge fan. I've watched all your coffee enema courses, and yeah, it's such an honor to be here. And I just appreciate people like you so much who are, you're a nurse and you're sharing your experience and your real and raw journey. And that's exactly what I'm doing as well, is just trying to be real and honest and sharing things that have really helped me and I hope will help everyone that's listening. So I'm so grateful to be here and for all the work that you do too.
Thank you. All right. That was a great episode. And bye for now, Kyah. And if you're listening, I will put the link in the show notes. Check out Happy Bum Co. And I am just amazed with their products. I've tried many different kits and I absolutely love it. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for listening to the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast, rate it, and leave a review, ideally a 5-star review if you loved it. All of this is free of charge and really helps me to be able to run the podcast. If you take a screenshot and tag me, I'll repost you and shout you out on Instagram. So tag Ashley Taylor Wellness and High Maintenance Hippie Podcast. If you have any feedback or guests that you'd like to have, I would love to hear from you so that I'm not just talking at you. I really want to deliver things that are valuable. So send me an email with any feedback, suggestions, or ideas for guests at ashley@ashleytaylorwellness.com. And I will leave you with a disclaimer. Please know that this is not medical advice or replacement for seeking medical care. Everything discussed on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. Always consult with your medical provider before making any changes. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.